The air is heavy with the scent of rotting frangipani and damp earth. You hear it before you see it, the rhythmic, heavy thud of a body bound in white linen striking the mud. It doesn't walk, it hops with a terrifying, unnatural momentum. A scream pierces the night, but it is cut short by a cold, decaying hand. This is the war no one spoke of, the battle between the living and the restless dead who refuse to stay buried. In this village, the shroud is not a symbol of peace, but a weapon of terror. The moonlight barely penetrates the thick canopy of the banyan trees, casting long, distorted shadows that seem to move of their own volition. You are caught in the crossfire of a spiritual siege, where the boundary between life and the afterlife has been violently torn asunder. Stay quiet, breathe slowly, and do not look back.
How did it come to this? Ancient folklore tells of souls trapped by a knot left untied. When the shroud isn't loosened before burial, the spirit remains tethered to the physical form, driven mad by the confinement of the grave. But tonight, it's not just one accidental oversight. Hundreds of these white-shrouded figures have risen, their faces blackened by the soil, their eyes glowing with an unholy hunger for the warmth of the living. The humans, once masters of the day, now huddle in the shadows, praying for a dawn that feels an eternity away. These creatures are the physical manifestation of a broken promise, a spiritual debt that must be paid in blood. They move with a single hive-like purpose, searching for the one who forgot to untie the final knot. The village elders whisper that this is a curse born from greed, a dark ritual gone wrong that has unleashed the restless dead upon the innocent.
The villagers aren't going down without a fight. They gather in the central square, armed with sharpened bamboo, pouches of sea salt, and the unwavering power of prayer. The elders chant ancient verses, their voices trembling but firm, creating a spiritual barrier against the encroaching darkness. They know the Pocong cannot cross a line of pure intention, but fear is a crack in the armor. Every flicker of a torch reveals a pale shape lingering at the edge of the woods, waiting for that one moment of doubt. The salt is scattered in circles around the children, a desperate attempt to create a sanctuary of purity in a land suddenly turned foul. The men sharpen their stakes, knowing that physical weapons may only slow down the inevitable. It is a war of attrition, a battle where the primary weapon is one's own sanity and the ability to hold on to a dying light in the face of absolute darkness.
A sudden cold snap hits the air, freezing the breath in the villagers' lungs. From the darkness of the rubber plantation, the first wave arrives. They don't make a sound except for that sickening thud against the earth. 1, then 5, then 20. The Pochongs stand upright, their heads wrapped tightly, leaning slightly forward as if sniffing the air for the scent of life. A young man, driven by panic, lunges forward with a torch. The fire illuminates the horror, the dried mud on the cloth, the sunken pits where eyes should be. He swings, but the creature moves with a jerky, supernatural speed, avoiding the flames with a movement that defies physics. The humans realize then that they are not fighting a physical foe, but a force of nature that has been offended. The atmosphere grows heavy with a sense of impending doom as more white shapes appear from behind the trees, surrounding the square in a silent, suffocating ring of death.
Fear is a contagion, spreading faster than the plague. In the silence between the thuds, the psychological warfare begins. The Pocong don't just attack, they haunt. They appear in the periphery of your vision, standing perfectly still in the middle of a path, only to vanish when you blink. One villager claims to hear his dead mother's voice calling from within the shroud of the nearest creature. This is their true power, the ability to reach into the deepest recesses of the human heart and pull out the guilt and grief stored there. The humans begin to turn on each other, questioning who among them brought this curse upon the village. Was it the gravedigger? The greedy merchant? The accusations fly as fast as the shadows, further weakening the spiritual shield. The Pocong watch, their silent presence a catalyst for the internal collapse of the human resistance. They are patient, for they have all of eternity, while the humans' candles are burning short.
The first human line breaks. A group of young warriors, emboldened by adrenaline, attempts to charge the forest to clear a path for the women and children. They are met with a wall of white. As they strike with their bamboo spears, the fabric of the Pocong absorbs the blows like a sponge. The creatures don't bleed, they exhale a thick black vapor that chokes the attackers. One by one, the warriors are pulled into the darkness, their screams muffled by the wrapping of the shroud. It is a massacre of the brave. The remaining villagers watch in horror as their defenders are systematically neutralized. The salt circles are being stepped over, not by the creatures, but by those who have lost their faith. Once the line of belief is crossed, the physical barriers lose their power. The humans are forced back into the town hall, the last bastion of safety in a world that has turned its back on the living. Inside the town hall, the air is thick with the smell of old wood and sweat. The village priest stands at the door, his hands shaking as he holds a sacred kriss, a wavy-bladed dagger believed to possess spiritual energy. He explains that to stop the Pocong, the head knot must be untied by a living hand. It is a suicide mission. Who among them is brave enough to get close enough to touch the dead, to reach out and loosen the binding that keeps the spirit tethered? The humans look at each other, the weight of the task settling in. The thumping outside grows louder, more rhythmic, as if the Pocong are drumming on the very floorboards of the building. The wood groans under the pressure. The windows rattle in their frames. Every hop outside feels like a heartbeat, counting down the seconds until the doors give way. The priest begins his final prayer, not for safety, but for the strength to do what must be done. The door shatters, not from force, but from the sheer weight of the spiritual pressure. The first Pocong enters, its face a mask of dried skin and earth. The priest steps forward, the kriss glowing with a faint ethereal light. He moves with a grace that belies his age, dodging the creature's lunges. With a quick, decisive motion, he reaches for the top of the head. The fabric is ice cold, smelling of deep earth decay. His fingers fumble with the knot, which is hardened by years of burial. The Pocong lets out a sound like dry leaves skittering across a grave, a hiss of pure agony. As the knot loosens, the white cloth begins to unravel, and the figure within starts to dissipate into the air like smoke. For a moment, there is a look of peace on the blackened face, before it vanishes entirely. A small victory, but hundreds more are waiting in the yard, their glowing eyes fixed on the open doorway. The success of the priest sparks a final, desperate surge of courage in the villagers. They realize they cannot simply hide. They must confront their fears. Taking whatever sharp objects they have, they rush out into the moonlight. It is a chaotic, swirling battle of white and shadow. Humans dodge and weave, reaching for the knots of the hopping figures. Each successful untying results in a burst of spiritual energy, lighting up the night like fireflies. But the Pocong are numerous, and for every one that is freed, 2 more seem to take its place. The humans are fighting for their homes, their families, and their very souls. The ground is slick with mud and salt, making the footing treacherous. In the heat of the battle, the distinction between the physical and the spiritual blurs. It is no longer just Pocong versus humans. It is a struggle for the very balance of the universe, a desperate attempt to put the dead back to rest. As the first light of dawn begins to bleed over the horizon, the Pocong's power starts to wane. The sun is the ultimate purifier, the one thing their dark energy cannot withstand. The creatures begin to retreat toward the shadows of the banyan trees and the safety of their graves. The villagers, exhausted and bloodied,
Watch as the white shapes vanish back into the earth, the knots they couldn't untie, dragging them back down into the depths. The silence that follows is deafening. The village square is a mess of salt, broken bamboo, and torn white fabric. But they have survived. They have faced the restless dead and held their ground. The elders know, however, that this is only a temporary reprieve. As long as the knots remain tied in the hearts of men, the Pocong will always be waiting in the shadows for another night of darkness. The war is over for now, but the legend lives on.
In the aftermath, the village is transformed. The survivors walk through the ruins of their night, their faces etched with a new understanding of the world. They gather at the cemetery, not with fear, but with a solemn duty. Under the watchful eyes of the priest, they begin to exhume the recently buried, carefully untying the shrouds of those who were laid to rest during the period of the curse. It is a grim task, but a necessary one to ensure the spirits find the peace they were denied. They work in silence, the only sound the scraping of shovels against the earth. They have learned that the greatest horror is not the ghost itself, but the negligence and broken promises that create them. As the last knot is loosened, a gentle breeze blows through the village, carrying away the scent of decay and replacing it with the freshness of a new morning. The cycle is broken, at least for this generation.
The story of the Pocong versus humans is a reminder of the thin veil between our world and the next. It is a tale of faith, courage, and the importance of honoring the dead. As the village rebuilds, the stories are passed down to the children, not as bedtime stories, but as warnings. Always remember to loosen the knots. Always respect the boundaries of the spiritual realm. For in the darkness of the night, when the frangipani blooms, the thud of the restless shroud can still be heard by those who listen closely. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the heart of horror. If you enjoyed this dive into urban legends, make sure to show your support. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates. Sleep well tonight, and remember, some things are better left untied, but never, ever forgotten.